What is going on, everybody? Coach Mike here at Impact Sports. I have a My 360 mindset. Today, we got episode 1 of Coach's Corner with Hayden Pewitt and Seth. How do you say your last name, by the way? I don't even know. I just noticed
McLemore.
McLemore, baby. Mac. Let's go. What's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
We're great, Mike. I'm excited to see your beautiful face.
Let's go, HP. Mac, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited. Coach Pewitt's talked a lot of good stuff about you, man. So I'm excited to meet you and to put a name with a face.
Yeah, fire me up. Fire me up. So just so people don't know, obviously, I know a little bit about you, Mac. I know too much about Pewitt. But give me a little bit of background on where you guys are both at in your career, what you're up to, what you've been doing the last couple of years. We can start with Mac, and then we'll go to HP. But just kind of a background of who you are, what you do, and what your passion is, basically.
Yeah. So I'm a hitting coach and recruiting coordinator at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. I just took this job this summer. I've been at App State up in Boone, North Carolina the last couple years, up on the mountain, man. That's a really interesting place if you've never been. It's its own culture up there for sure, man. Those mountain people are awesome, and very thankful for my time there. Before that, I was at Milligan University, which is an NAI in Johnson City, Tennessee. And then I've made a couple stops, Murray State University, another NAI up in Missouri Central Methodist. And I was a small college player and just kind of a blue-collar hitting approach, I guess you would say. And then it's just kind of grew and from the love of the game, I guess. And I never even thought I would coach and do this, but here I am, and I've given a chance by my head coach in college, and then all of a sudden it turned into something that I never could see myself not doing. So it's been a pretty cool journey. I've been thankful to learn from a lot of people that have really influenced me, and Hayden's one of those guys. So I'm excited to kind of let the story unfold and kind of unmesh to how we know each other and where we come from.
Yeah, fire me up. HP, you're up.
So honestly, we've got pretty similar paths. We could sit here for 10 minutes and talk about all the different stops I've had, but same thing, small college player, wasn't very good. Kind of after college, I was like, what the heck am I going to do with my life? Realized that a lot of kids my age probably ask themselves the same question. So I was like, why not be a coach and try to help kids do that and figure out what their purpose is, and maybe win a few baseball games along the way.
Love it. Fire me up. And just so people that are listening that have no idea who I am or what my connection is to these guys, I played for HP. Well, played is an overstatement. I was around HP, Hayden Pewitt down at Kaiser University for a couple of years, and then Hayden Pewitt introduced me to Mac. This is the first time we've met. I got Hullett texting me now, dude. Come on now. He can't join the pod, but he can text me. Come on, what are we doing? But yeah, so it's been cool I know Mac, Hayden speaks highly of your brain and when it comes to hitting. And for those that are listening today, that's what we're going to be talking about is just diving into the world of hitting and just kind of chopping it up. So I guess I'll let, both of you guys kind of touch on it in your own way. But when it comes to the whole world of hitting, I want to know, what has influenced you the most? If you had to answer this question today, what has influenced your mindset when it comes to hitting the most in recent years? Because we see a lot of, kids on social media, a ton of coaches on social media posting all these different approaches and intent and all these different words that some people don't even understand. So what kind of influence you guys the most? What's the overarching view that you have when it comes to hitting? I know it's a loaded question, but I want to start there.
I'll go first. I think that it's the same thing that the kids are seeing. We see that too, and we bounce that off of guys like me and Mac have a great relationship. If I see something on Twitter or I see something on Instagram that intrigues me, I'm going to go text Mac and I'm going to send it to him. I'm going to send it to you, Mike. I'm going to send it to different people and be like, yo, this was pretty sick, or what are we doing here? How do we figure out what purpose this has in our program or whatever? So as far as influencing, I would just say the people around you. And you can, bounce ideas off of them. Even your players, those players have some pretty daggum good ideas sometimes. And so using just your resources as, around you as much as possible. People, nothing in my opinion is stupid on the internet because somebody's got a purpose behind it. Whether or not it's bad for you, maybe. But but there's a purpose of why they thought that was a good idea, and it's fun to dive into those ideas and stuff that people think like, oh, we should do this to develop our guys, with guys like you guys and some of my other buddies too.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Pew on that. Like, there's a big and just vast amount of information that you can go get, like with just a simple search on your Instagram reel, on your TikTok, man. Like, I don't even have a TikTok, and my wife shows me stuff, and I mean, like it's all out there, dude. It really is, and kind of like you mentioned in the pre-show, like there's guys from Eugene Bleecker and like Teacher Man, and like there's all these people who are like really good hitting coaches, and they do it. They have success with people, and like how do you know where you fall into that? And I think that's where like Coach Pewitt's right, man. Like you got to be able to have people in your corner to bounce ideas off of, and to have a plan. Like I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned. I remember walking into that ABCA trade show my first time, dude, and like seeing like all these vendors and like this, and like I just like my jaw hit the floor when like there's this guy up on the stage and there's thousands of coaches listening to just him speak because he's one of the best in the world at teaching hitting, right? Like he might be, and it's just like jaw dropping to me that people do stuff like what this guy is saying. Like they do this at practice. Like he's showing videos of it, and like some of that stuff like I never seen before, and I was like, man, like if you get this access to this information, like how do you know it works for certain guys? How do you know it works for it doesn't work? Is it trial and error and just like really trying to blend that together with people you trust and opinions that you trust, because like those are the guys that you want to be with all the time, man. And I think that that's been the coolest part to me the last couple of years, is seeing how it's on social media and everywhere. Like you can't go anywhere. Like I think me and Pewitt grew up in the era where like everybody was posting their coaching on social media too. Like they were like, this is how I coach. This is what we do, and like kind of showcasing themselves as coaches. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger. And I think that that's been a cool thing to just be able to talk about with people and find a plan for somebody, because there is a plan out there for you that will work. It's just about trying to find that.
Yeah. And I don't know how much HP's told you about like my background or what I do. But essentially like I'm kind of walking the fine line of like talking hitting with guys when it comes to my baseball athletes, because I work on the mindset side, right? So I'm basically like having these sessions where I'm talking mindset habits with individuals, just like there's physical habits that are conducive for hitting a ball well. There's mindset habits and intent behind it. But a lot of what I deal with, especially with the younger generation of athletes, is this sense of like, hey, if it doesn't work this game, I got to change up. If I don't get a hit this game, I'm done. I gotta switch something up. And I noticed it. I have my first three athletes here were baseball players by design. I wanted to be around guys that I could relate to when I was learning the ropes of what we do here. But one of the things I asked every single one of them to do, in the first section, because they all came in with the same thing. They said, hey, yo, Mike, I've gone over for the last 10 at bats. And then the parents are telling me, yo, he's switching up his swing. The kids telling me I'm switching up my swing. I'm trying to get short. I'm trying to do all these things. And I said, dude, I want you to hold this bat. And I gave him a bat. And I said, I want you to hold this bat. I want you to get into your perfect stance. Okay. I just said it like that. And every single kid got into their stance, not Mookie Betts, not Aaron Judge, not something they saw online. I was like, dude, that is your stance regardless of what is happening, right? If I tell you to take a perfect swing right now, we have a max BP, like off, I don't know if you've seen them, like the little balls just to do it here. I tell them, yo, just take your perfect swing. They're out here making contact every time. Like, why are we going to deviate from something that has been working for you and that's worked for you over and over again just because you have, 10 bad at-bats, right? For these kids, 10 at-bats could be 2 weeks.
Yep.
For an MLB guy, that's 2 games. So when you're dealing with these youth athletes that, number one, they're going to school, then they go to practice, and they tie so much of that practice of that game to their identity where they don't play well. So now it's like, yo, I need a quick fix. I need something to happen right now. And I would argue, which I can ask you guys, this probably happens at the college level too. Then they go and have a bad game or a bad weekend, right? And now they're trying to find the quick fix to chase after something else because, hey, if I don't get a quick fix, I'm going to lose that part of my identity. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like it's a battle when with these kids because, like I said, they're going to school, they go to baseball, part of my language. they mess up, and then they scroll TikTok and they're like, oh, yo, this drill worked for Big Poppy back in '08. I'm gonna try it now. I'm gonna try to use this, and it's gonna get me back on pace. Now, I say all that, and that was very long-winded, but I'm curious as to if you guys see a similar thing kind of transpire with college athletes, because, I mean, I know I was doing it with HP when I was playing for him. I'd go and have my one at-bat a month, and I'd be like, yo, what happened in that one AB, bro? Like, why didn't I get a hit there? And it's like, and he's like, dude, what do you want me to tell you? Like, it's one AB, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's no magic pill, magic fix. So I'm curious to hear if you guys see that more so at the college level as well.
I think that's for sure, dude. Like for me, I feel like there's kind of like two different styles of college hitters that are untrained, right? Like the young guys. There's like the guy that's going to go out there and just try to swing and hit home runs. And then there's the guy who's got a drill and a fix for everything, right? Yeah. He's very like just right there. And there's no real in the middle when it comes to young guys, right, at the college level. And I think that like that's kind of where we're trying to meet them, somewhere in the middle of that, and like help them with where they're at,
Yeah.
HP, what do you got on that?
Well, I think a lot of the times we don't think about the other variables too. Like 10 at bats, like you said, that's no time in college baseball or professional baseball. That's a whole kid's weekend,
Yeah.
And sometimes in that weekend, you may not get a single pitch to hit. So, like, let's talk about the variables. Why was he doing this to attack me? What was I exposing myself to? What was I swinging at? Like, those variables, like, you may not get a pitch to hit all weekend. You may get 10 pitches to hit all weekend and miss every single one of them. So figuring out which one of those it is. Is it I'm missing the pitch that I like, that I'm getting? Or is it I'm swinging at stuff and not getting in my counts to where I can get my pitch? That's the big thing for me is, like, it's usually decision-making and swing decisions than more so than it is my swing.
100%. I'm happy you brought that up, because it's literally what I tell these guys in our sessions, right? Because especially on the mental skill side, we have to lean into what we can control, like, all the time. Because on the mental skill aspect, there's not a lot of tangible, like objective things that are going on. Like if you have a guy that goes in there and you're in the cage working on, physical habits, you're going to have something that produces an outcome, right? If I'm in here during like a classroom setting or even in the cages working like in a mental, on a mental skill, I can't really like have that immediate, hey, you did this and you had a good outcome, right? Because it's just all subjective. It's all in the brain, right? But what I tell the guys is like, okay, for instance, kid came in, sits down, dude, I had an awful weekend. I had like one hit, it was a double, and everything else, like, was just going to, and I'm like, okay, so how'd your team do? He's like, dude, we got no hit twice. I'm like, okay, well, there's that. Maybe
must have been a pretty good arm.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe we like, tap into the, hey, tip the cap once in a while, to understand like, hey, maybe you just got beat and that's okay.
Yeah, they're supposed to get you out. That's what's supposed to happen in this sport.
Exactly. But, to explain that to a young kid that, maybe, and again, a lot of these kids that we work with, they're elite for their age, right? Like their parents are investing into this mental skill stuff because they say, hey, we have the physical talent, but there's something happening on the mental side that they think is, hindering them from being that much better. These kids go from, like you're saying, new college guys probably go from a high school team where they're the dude. They could be, they could be off and still have a good miss, and now it's a base hit in high school where that miss was never they're not gonna catch a barrel. You know what I'm saying? So it's for us, at least, or for what I do on the mental skill side, it's a lot of, hey, what can you control? You can control this, your approach, your intent behind what you do, and basically just rely on your athleticism at this young age. When I'm working with a 12-year-old, they don't have the knowledge or like the whereabouts to be like, yo, like back hip hinge, be here. If I'm not there, I'm gonna be late, right? I have to just get them to understand, hey, you got what you got. You got to pretend like you're playing wiffle ball here and go out and just have some fun, right? And that's on the younger side. But it leads me into my next question. And I'm sorry if I'm going too fast here. If you have anything to say, just stop me.
No, keep it rolling, baby.
I get rolling and then I don't stop, so I apologize in advance. But like we're saying with this whole Instagram thing, right? As much as it's a great tool because it's a resource, there's a lot of different stuff to see. There's a lot of different answers that these kids are getting. And when I say kids, I mean anybody from 8 years old to 18 years old stepping on a college campus for the first time, right? What are some of the
dude? Like, you got grown men watching the same. I mean, 23. There's no way that there's no way that pro players don't see themselves out there and like see stuff like that too, dude.
Exactly.
No
right.
Point proven even further. So, but when it comes to breaking this stuff down and boiling, hey, I'm taking all of this information in, right? What are some of the pillars that you guys each, for your respective teams, kind of hit on when it comes to hitting, right? Because we can talk hitting until we're blue in the face, but we got to produce on the field. So, in
Right.
your guys' opinion, what are some of the pillars that you guys hit upon that says, hey, if we can do this and have this, we're going to get this result?
Whew. That like the McDonald's secret sauce question? Like I you
Hey,
like that's
if you don't want to share it, I also understand that completely.
no.
But at least
No,
hit me with a couple pillars, very general, of like, hey, we talk
All
about
right.
this and this.
Yeah.
fastball timing
Yeah.
for sure. And
Boom.
then what that means to a certain individual, that's really big for me.
Yeah.
And I think that like that individual tells me how he moves and how he is up here too on the mental side. Like he tells me a lot about himself when he tells me where his fastball timing is. And then trying to bridge the gap to be able to cover a second pitch. And I think that that's where like we try to have and that's for me. I think that's how do you teach him to cover a second pitch? Is you got to teach him to cover the first one correctly.
Yeah.
And like we're going to have some bad movers and some inefficiencies in some areas that we have to hit on in pre-work and body movements and things like that we really focus on. And our strength guys do a great job of getting us those assessments and what we need to focus on, because it does help when we're talking about bridging that gap. It does. It's a ton of help. And we do it every day. But I think to the two pillars for me would be fastball timing and the ability to cover a second pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I sit there and watch big league games sometimes. I'm like, how the heck do they cover these like 5 pitches this guy's throwing? He's topping 102 or whatever. And it's like, how do you even think about diving into that? But yeah, I would agree with Mac. That's one of the pillars for sure. Is fastball timing. And when I usually like, I want to ask everybody in the room, like, what does on time mean to you? Because it's going to mean different things to everybody. What do I do to be on time? How do I be on time? All that stuff. Like, what does it look like to you? Because, if you think about, from the time I pick up my leg till the time the ball hits the bat, like everybody's timing of that is going to be different. So how early do I start? How late do I start? So on and so forth. That's a huge thing for us too, is just be on time with the fastball and then adjust to that from, if I'm, more worried about this breaking ball coming in here, there's no way I can pull a fastball because I'm just going to yank the breaking ball even further foul. So and that goes back to, can I drive the ball the opposite field too? Being able to have like real feel for the barrel to hit a ball as far to the opposite field gap as I can in the poolside gap. That's a game changer when it comes to, multiple pitches coming into the zone at once. Is, do I have the adjustability in my swing? And then do I have the adjustability in my approach?
Boom.
Yeah, and I think another one kind of off of that is like, how do you teach them that adjustability? And like, what is like on the mental side is like, what is a bad at bat, or like quote unquote giving away an at bat or a pitch or a swing? And how does that correlate to a good hitter or a bad hitter, or like what they're trying to do up there, like with it, whether it be direction or height or anything, like on time, like where you're at, and like that matters, dude. It does, and like how you get there. I think Pewitt hit it on the head, man, because everybody's going to move differently to get there. And one of his things that he says a lot to me is like, how do we give them more time? And like that, I think that's a big pillar for us too. Is like, I want you to be on time as often as you can with the most amount of time to make a decision on a swing or not.
Yeah.
And I guess like for me, it's not swing or not. It would just be like the decision to not swing because it's a ball.
Yeah.
Because we're always in go mode, right? Like it's swing until it's a ball. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How early and long can you be on time? I mean, we've said it.
Yeah.
We said it a ton when we were down just doing, illegal cage sessions, as we call them, because we weren't. But nonetheless, no.
Another thing, but like going back into that is like, how quick can you stop too? Like, how quick can I stop my barrel and take that pitch? And that goes back to, mechanical stuff with the lower half. But how late can I stop? And can I control that? Can I not? And that, there's a lot of kids that aren't strong enough to do stuff like that too. So that goes back into the weight room issues as well. So
Yeah, I mean, if
yeah,
you're
go
a
on,
young
Mike.
kid and you're listening to that, like, take pitches off the daggum hack attack. Take them.
Yeah,
Don't swing at
yeah,
everything. Like, that's a bad thing to do
yeah.
because you're teaching yourself bad mechanics. They're not all strikes. I know. I've seen
No,
that thing work.
No, and that was awesome, by the way, first of all. And I'm going to go kind of on a little tangent here just to apply the mental skill stuff to keep the theme of the podcast, if you guys are fine with that. But I also want to do this in a way that throws it out. These are like ideas that I've had, and I'm sure Pewitt's shared some stuff that or maybe he hasn't with you, Matt, because he's basically my soundboard, or was at Kaiser when I was going through this whole. I'd go up and I'd just be talking. I'd be flipping them balls while he's hitting fungo, sweating. And all of a sudden, I'd be like, yeah, he's not even listening to me right now, dude. I'm just talking to nobody. But there was one thing that Mac, you mentioned that I want to touch on first. Concerning like a good and a bad miss, right? A good swing. I mean, a good swing, basically good process, but we didn't get the result we wanted, or bad process and we might have got the result we wanted. A lot of times, what we see on the mental skill side is that it's basically like two different athletes, right? Results focus or process focus. The more often that
yeah,
we can get an individual that's process focused, it understands that, hey, sometimes I'm going to have the best process and do all the things that I need to do right and not to get the results I want. That's great. When we have a kid that's results focused, and they're only worried about, hey, did I get a hit? Did I find a barrel? Think about it this way. How many times have we seen someone take a really poor swing with a really bad approach or intent and they catch a barrel, right? That's not what we want. We want the individual that's going to be so involved in, hey, what's the process that gets me the opportunity or the chances of getting the most results that I need, right? So we really teach our athletes here and in general just to be process oriented, right? Because if we're process oriented, we're way more in control of what we're doing. And again, the guy that's process oriented is going to find more results over a long term than somebody that's results focused. Now, here's the thing. Little Timmy comes in from 12U baseball and their season is 30 at bats, and their best friend who swings at every single pitch got 4 more hits than him, right? How can I tell little Timmy, hey, you stick to the process? It's tough for them. But when we get into like pro ball and college, we have a lot more at bats to see. I know Hayden, the guys we can reflect on, some of the guys that were, into their process and knew what they had to do to be successful Alejandro Macario was able to hit
yeah.
over a long period of time. The other thing that I kind of wanted to run by you guys, and I don't know if I told Hayden about this, but and I want to get your feedback on it because I use this a lot, but again, I need hitting minds on it. You know what I'm saying? I need to run it through your guys' brains.
Right.
So on the mental side of things, all right, I utilize the word approach and intent, I think, a little bit differently than a lot of people, okay? But I want to explain why. Approach is basically a way of going about something, right? But like we've said here, athletes move in different ways and require different things to get a job done, right? So what I try to explain to my athletes is like, hey, the approach is set by the game of baseball. So if I have a guy on second base, my approach or what is being asked of me in that moment is probably going to be get him over, get him in, right? If I have a guy on first with that can run, my approach might be, hey, work a longer at bat, give him a chance to get to second base, right? So the approach is being set up by the game of baseball, okay? Because again, on the mental skills side, we need to be able to take stuff that we can control, okay? In any given at bat, I could have 4 different jobs that are being asked of me, right? That my coach is going to say, hey, have a good approach here, right? Guy on first, pass ball. Now it's a guy on second, pass ball. Guy on third. I just went through 3 different jobs in one at bat, right? So what I tell my guys to do is focus on their intent, okay? And what I mean by intent is this, like, say I have a guy up there that they know they can't catch up to high velo, right? So he's going to go up with a backside intent with a guy on second base, knowing, hey, I'm just trying to pepper a ball to the backside, right? Or if I have a guy up there that can't hit an off-speed pitch, a spinner, and this guy on the mound is 70% sliders, his intent might be, I got to get a bunt down right now. Do you know what I'm saying? So I want to know if this, like, first of all, on the surface level, makes sense. And if you guys can apply any additional info into like the difference between, hey, this is a job being asked of you and this is the
Yeah.
intent, because I think it's a lot easier for individuals to control that intent, that they know, hey, okay, for my process here, I need to go backside line drive, or I need to stay middle with a guy on third as opposed to trying to go pull side Jimmy or backside bomb,
Right.
But I wanted to get your thoughts on this because that's something I use often.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there may be some kids that go up there that, in order to hit a ground ball to second base off of X arm, like he may have to try to hit a double down the left field line, like because of where his swing's at that day or because of where he's at timing wise, whatever it may be. Just like it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with variables in baseball. Like there's just so many of them to account for. When you talk about jobs, let me use my hands like Mike did.
Sorry.
That's like, if we're in a game, it's we all use the word having feel of everything in life. Like it's kind of, you got to have some feel too, because like, each team, if there's a runner at second and nobody out, one team, this college over here may want you to hit a home run, and this college over here may want you to hit a ground ball to the backside. And that's, us as coaches, we've got to train that in BP, train that in, hitting sessions, train that in film sessions, whatever. And so that kid that needs to pull the ball down the left field line in order to hit a ground ball to second base understands why he has to do those things to get that result. So I think that, quality BP sessions, like I know me and Seth both do this, but like we do a lot of directional stuff with fastball timing, with external, cues or external targets or whatever it is. But just understanding what I have to do to get the result I want. At the end of the day, that's what all comes up to. And then when you talk about jobs, like just coaching guys and understanding what they have to do to consider or what they have to do to get that job done, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I like the way that you kind of defined intent and approach. I never use that really, but I think that's right. Like, the approach is set by, like, for us, like a scouting report, right? Like, ride and a curveball or sinker slider, right? And so there's your approach mixed with the base runners and the outs and the count and all of that. But the intent, like you say, is a singular like person's job to make himself successful versus that at bat, right? With like we hit like a machine on the ground, like a hack attack on the ground with no legs to simulate ride, right? It's just a mini hack, and like it's tough to get on top of, like if you've never tried it. And like some guys, like I'm gonna ground out to the corner infielder on my pull side. That's what they're thinking, but they hit a freaking double in the pull side gap because they just got on plane where they needed to get, and the cue to hit it a ground ball to the first baseman if they're left-handed, right, got them on plane and out front enough to go and execute that job. And like teaching them that and like understanding that that's not a bad approach, right? Like there are guys that get paid millions of dollars that think hit the ball on the ground sometimes. That ain't what's gonna happen, dude. And like that's where sometimes this like I mean like this is the old school, right? Like we had this fight with all, like the old school minds for a long time, but they weren't like maybe they weren't asking us to hit weak side ground balls, or maybe it got it got lost in translation somewhere.
Yep.
But they were on to something, dude. They were. Because like there's a certain pitcher that works against, right? But on the opposite side, if he's sinking it, like maybe the guy's got to think loft and like go fly out to center, right? And like we do think that, right? Like I want you to try to fly out to center, like turn his back and fly him out, and like don't roll that thing over, like go get it.
Right.
Yeah.
And just being able to be that adjustable, but also like trust yourself enough. I remember we were in our conference tournament last year, and Southern Miss put this cat in, and dude, he was nasty, dude. Low 3/4. I mean, gross. And I had seen him on the scouting report the night before, and I was like, well, if he comes in, like I think we're good because we hit the fastball on the ground like right before, like the day before. And I was like, this is what. And then I swear our right fielder come in the dugout, and he was like, hey, dude, that's literally a fastball on the ground from the hack. It's the same. I mean, he was still really good that day, but it was really cool to hear them talk about that in the dugout and like know what you're doing and what you're talking about is like taking hold, and they believe in it. And I think that's where you teach them success, right, is in the training session. And then you can have the mental side and like you're working on the mental game, because like the success and your self-belief and like where you carry yourself, that's everything, dude. Like that's good process. Like believing that you can hit and knowing, like, even if you're going to get cut up in the ninth in the conference tournament with it on the line, it doesn't matter because there's going to be a tomorrow. Like, it's good. The sun's going to come up and like, we're going to go back and hit on Monday, dude. And like, we're going to work on that again. And I think that that's where like you find their love for it and like their love for you too, because they know you're right there with it.
That was brilliant on both sides, by the way. That was great. No, and again, you guys are saying the same things that I was thinking about kind of when I not designed this or like created it, but like just started using this terminology, right? Because, I've had coaches in the past that just say, yo, like have an approach. It's like, dude, the approach is right here. Like if this guy is throwing high spin rate fastballs at the top of the zone, like we all have to approach this in a certain way, right? But my intent to get success off this guy is going to be different than the guy next to me, right? So, and I think just differentiating the two, especially in the mental skill world, makes it a lot easier to say, okay, like what problem are we trying to solve right now? Is it an intent issue? Like, are you not making the right or having the right intent with what your skill set is, right? Or are you literally like abandoning what the game is asking of you in this moment, right? And what I mean by that is not just like the job that needs to get done, but like even like you said, like if we're facing a Chuck Hayden from Kaiser, like 3/4 all the way down here, we have to approach that a little bit differently than we're facing a guy that's straight over the top. You know what I'm saying? So having conversations about like, hey, my intent versus your intent, like, hey, what are you trying to do here, right? We take our cage sessions are at the same time. We do our sessions together. We talk a lot of hitting. What's your intent right now? Because I can't figure this guy out. As opposed to like, hey, like what's your approach? And I talk to a lot of the kids I have right now because I'll go to their games or I'll talk to their coaches and it's like, yeah, he never seems to have an approach. And it's like, okay, dude, like the approach is there. Like it's not that he's not doing what he can control to get it done during that
That's
specific
it,
situation.
baby.
That's it. Like
that's it. I mean, that's as hard as it gets because
Yeah.
the game is going to take it out of you, right?
Yeah.
Like it is like one pitch and like you're done and like, but you can't, right? And that's mental training. Like you've got to be able to reset and breathe and focus back to the good because if you can't ever get there, like that's where you have to work in training, right? And if it takes us an hour to take 50 swings because it's that important, then it's that important.
Oh, and I actually, you just made me think of something. So one of the things that we talk a lot about here, and I think it's going to be useful, well, I know it will be useful if you guys mention this at your respective schools. Basically, our director, he's a clinical psychologist, his sports psychologist, whatever. But in his research, he basically determined that like what confidence is for individuals, right? And it applies to baseball so much that it like gave me chills when I first heard it. So the way we go about teaching like confidence to individuals, and again, that's what you're trying to create, right? In the cage, like, hey, whatever we're doing here, we're trying to create confidence behind it.
Yeah.
So when we get out there, we go dominate, right? Like, but what does confidence mean, right? A lot of people don't know how to explain that, right? Or train it. But what I tell athletes that I work with now is like, hey, the reason behind the stuff that we do in practice that you might think is eyewash is the same reason that you're going to be confident in the game. Just like you said about that player that has already seen that pitch, right? So the equation that we use is confidence equals belief times results, right? So if I want to be confident that the Red Sox, the best team in baseball, are going to be good, right? That are good, I have to have belief in it, right? I have to buy into, hey, the Red Sox are good, and then they got to win some games in that results section for me to be like, hey, I'm confident next game the Red Sox are going to be good, right? So when these guys roll out of a cage session, number one, they got to buy in to what they're doing, because if they don't buy into what they're doing, then we're not going anywhere with it, right? And number two, they have to continuously get these reps against these things that put them in a challenging situation to know, hey, when I get out there, I can face this guy. I can face this arm slot. I can get on top of this ball that's maybe rising on me a little bit, right? Or cutting away from me. If you don't have that, and again, for the athletes that might be listening, like a lot of times I would question, hey, why the hell are we doing this, right? But I wasn't looking at it from that lens of like, hey, this is going to set me up to be confident when game time comes. And that's the most important thing. I don't know if you guys had anything to add to that, because I do think it's good for athletes to hear, but also for coaches too.
For sure.
And then one other thing that I like that you guys mentioned, and I wanted to
No, you nailed it. Like, I don't know what else to say on that. Like, that
it's all right. Just leave me out to dry. It's all right. I'll just keep it.
Hey, I mean, dude, like that's what it is, though. Like that's why you go to practice, right? Like if like I said, there's two types of hitters. Like they're either going to do these mechanical little until they can't mess it up no more, or they're just going to go out there and try to hit home runs. And most of them, you know what most of them are going to try to do? They just want to hit feel good BP and hit home runs.
Yeah.
Because they think that that's going to translate.
Yeah.
They do. Like they really do. Like if I can hit home runs in batting practice, I can hit home runs in the game.
Yeah.
And again, I would pull out the equation right away. It's like, okay, what are you trying to be confident in doing, right? You're trying to be confident in hitting BP. That's great. You believe you can hit BP well and you have results to show it. That's great. But if we can't be confident, and by that I mean have the results to show I can do this against this type of pitch, how can we be confident come game time, right? Like that's what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I pulled out of Hayden that you said, training the why. Like talk about like the thing that I think I lacked in my college experience. I don't know if you guys felt the same way too. Why are we doing this, right? If we can tell athletes, hey, this is the why behind this drill, dude, one, you're going to get buy-in, and two, they're going to be working towards how their intent matches up with what they're trying to do in this moment. Because if they don't know what they're trying to do or what they're trying to create, how the hell is that going to ever translate to a game, right? How can we take Cage and make it game sense, right? But I love that you said that, and I think it can be used in a lot of different, not even just, I mean, in life. I mean, not just baseball or hitting or
exactly.
fielding.
That's what I was thinking when you said that. I was like, is he talking about the why in life, or the why is like, why are we training this? But yeah, it works both ways. Like, if I know this is what I want to do with my life, am I taking the steps to get there while I'm in school to study that stuff, or while I want to play professional baseball? Like, am I doing the right things to give me a contract? Am I lifting? Am I taking care of my body, sleeping, all that stuff? And it's the same thing, on the field. Like, do I believe in this drill? Do I believe in how we're seeing the ball, how we're approaching the at-bats, whatever? But all that goes right back to the relationship with the player. So if you don't trust me, I don't trust you. None of that's going to work. My advice that I give you, or the conversations that we have about life, they ain't going to go well. You ain't going to listen to anything I say. And it's going to be the same way in baseball. Like, if I tell you to, there's some kids I've had, like Mike, if I would have told you to go up there and bat left-handed, you'd have done it in a heartbeat. But some kids would have questioned that and been like, what the heck is that? And it's the same way in life. Like, if I say, hey, man, you should probably take care of your grades because I didn't and I experienced that, and we need to do that. And some kid may just shake that off and say, whatever. And then it's going to be the same thing on the field when I tell him to do something too.
The way I hit at Kaiser, I might be a lefty. So who knows? I guess the world may never know.
Tough league out there.
That Sun Conference there, watch out.
Oh, the Sun, man. Those 3 at-bats will go down in history, man.
Oh, man. You hit a really long fly ball one time, though. That's cool.
After my head coach told me to go and get out on purpose.
Intent.
The intent was there. I said, I'm going to get out, man, but I'm going to do it the cool way.
Oh, I may take my time getting out the box, too.
No, you get it. Mac, have you heard the story of what happened in my first at-bat this year? Did he tell you this? And I'm only bringing it up. This isn't a yearbook thing. This is because it's the first time I've ever seen it happen in baseball, okay? I finally get my at-bat, dude. I go up. I don't think I was wearing batting gloves. I just took a random bat. I went up. I'm like, I'm going yard, okay? Second pitch, I go backside single, little bloop shot, okay? The umpire goes, no, ball's dead. Another ball came in from the bullpen. He took my hit away from me in a blowout game. We're up like 10, okay? So now I come back.
Were on the field. The ball rolled all the way down, and he called it.
And he's like, no, ball's dead. So now I'm pissed. I go up, next pitch, I get another base hit backside. So I got 2 hits and 1 at bat. It was sick. And mind you, to top it all off, you know what I did pregame that day? I threw BP to our team in the cages. That
is the NAI for you right there, baby.
Dude, I think I might be the first player in the country to throw BP to their extra hitters and half of their starters and then get 2 hits and 1 at bat while up 25 runs. So that's an ESPN stat for you. But I had some intent, so that's all that matters. No, that's it. One thing I do want to touch upon, because I know you guys are probably, well, I can imagine, Mac, you're good at this as well. Hayden brought it up, is the relationship with players, especially in the recruiting process, because we have college guys that are going to be listening to this. And I want to hear your guys' insight of how, like, you know, you guys both handle recruiting in your own regard, and kind of the way that, you know, athletes should kind of approach it and look for those, like, quality connections with coaches. Because a lot of times it's like, hey, I'm going to promise you all this stuff, but they're not really trying to build a connection. I know Hayden's very good at this, building connection with players and how important that is. So maybe touch upon both for players to seek out, but also for other coaches to maybe start doing, on the relationship with the player side, if you can.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think the first thing is I'm a person too. Like most, like I don't want to just like talk baseball and like if the conversation flows and goes, like that's the best way to go about it. Like I want to know about your day. Like I want to know about your family. If you got brothers and sisters, and like I want you to talk about that. Because I want you to have some pride in where you're from and like what you
Yeah.
believe in and like what's molded you and shaped you. And like you don't have to tell me the cookie cutter answers that you think you should hear, because like I just want to know who you are, because I like it's our job to meet you somewhere in the middle of that and like help bridge that gap to becoming a man, right? And where you're going. And like I tell people this all the time, but like my number one goal through this is like I don't want people to fail the same way that I did.
Yeah.
And if I can help that, and like my recruiting process was terrible. I was not a good player, first of all, but like that, like it wasn't though, right? Like it wasn't like I did the recruiting thing twice, junior college and 4 year, and it was hard. It was really hard, and to try to play on top of that, like we know where you're at, like we do, and like we see that, and like we're not always like just like no, you got to be here right now, and like like you've got to be doing good or playing good. Like no, dude, like we just want to check in and have that relationship, and I think that's where it starts for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell basically every kid I talk to on the first phone call, like, this is the start of our relationship. Like, I don't want to tell you anything. I don't want to, like, I just want to talk. Like, I just want to see, where you from, where your parents from. What can I find out about them, and then go on from there about how building the relationship goes. And, there's so many different personalities out there. Like, you know, this guy may want to talk all the time, and I may need to catch up with him once a week. Whereas this guy, I text him once a week, call him once every semester, and that's all he wants to talk. But anyways, just getting to know the people. Like, I love busting chops. You know that, Mike. Like, I love, if the Red Sox suck, Mike's gonna know they suck when he walks into my office.
But they don't,
And
so it's okay.
right, but like,
They
whatever it
do.
is, like, we're gonna talk about that. I want to know. I'm a big NBA fan. Who's your team? NFL, whatever it is. Like, I want to talk to y'all about that, and just because it's something we have in common, and we can bond off of that thing, and that conversation may lead to something bigger in conversation. You never know, but it at least gets you more comfortable talking to me and saying what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, like it is it's a partnership, like and like we're trying to have some like we want to help you. It's your
Yeah,
career, but like we're on the side of like trying to bridge your career to be the best it can be, and you got to trust us, and we got to trust you, and yeah, I think that that's a really good way of putting it. Like we like. But the way that it's turned, dude, like it's just craziness. Like people want to have how much money, this, and this, and like you're gonna get scholarships now, right? Like you are, and like people, but that's not what it's about. It is about trusting, because like there's thousands and thousands of names in that transfer portal, man, and like people go every day and leave the place that they're at, and like a lot of that is because of that relationship, right? Don't chase a name on the front, like chase the people that want you to be around, because those
right.
people care about you.
Yeah. I definitely am. I mean, I've never done the recruiting or coaching stuff, obviously. I mean, it's just, it's not my, that's how, I'm not on that side of it, right? But I have now started to become on the other side of it, on the player side, like, guys asking for recruiting advice and all that stuff. And I want to mention this because for people listening, it might be beneficial, not so much to you guys. But like, you know, at the end of the day, you mentioned the word partnership, right? And when two individuals that are in the law field want to come together for a partnership, they're saying, "Hey, I got you, no matter what happens." Um, I would go out on a limb and say that Hayden and I spent more time with each other than we did his wife and my girlfriend. Like, we are going to be with each other for
Yeah.
majority, if not more, for that time that we're together than our families. I mean, some
My
of these
wife
kids are
over here
coming.
shaking her head right now, dog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, she
And
knows.
that's the thing. So, like, how are you going to walk into a locker room every single day and not be fired up to be there, right? I mean, I'm sure Hayden can speak to this. I mean, I walked into our locker room every day fired up just to be able to say hi to him and like go and
Right.
talk. I didn't help him
Whether
out
you
with
were
the
having a
field.
good or a bad day, it didn't matter.
Yeah,
Like,
most of
and
the
that's
About
days
the
to
I
get
was there.
consistency.
better. It's about to
Yeah,
get better, right? Like you
Yeah.
get to
I
get
don't
your boys.
right. I don't know
exactly.
who told me this, what coach told me this, but it's like you got to be the consistency in their lives because with 18 to
That's good.
22 or however many old it is, like shoot, we had how old's Hull 25? We had a 25-year-old on our team. There's so many inconsistencies in those people's lives. Like 18-year-olds, you're trying to figure out class. What the heck am I going to do about this whatever pre-cal class? What am I going to do about the girl that I talked to the other night in class? Like, do I need to go talk to her? Like, my girlfriend just broke up with me. What do I do? Like, all these
I
inconsistencies in
haven't
their
called my
lives.
mom in 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah,
Like, all these
yeah,
inconsistencies in their lives. Like, we got to be the consistency that's like, hey, man, you're going to show up here. We're going to have a good day. And if we don't have a good day, we're going to get better from it. That's the huge thing for me is just like be consistent every day. Like, we can't be mood swings. Like we can't have mood swings as coaches to where like the guys come in and they don't want to be there because you're not getting any better when nobody wants to be there.
I think that goes back to the why question too. Like you said,
Yeah.
like the coach and the why. Like they're in a period of their lives, and they are from you said 8 to 18. Like from 8 to 18, they get told what to do so damn much.
Yeah.
Like they
Oh, it's
do.
all
Like
just this. It's just
From
this, and then
they
they go to
wake up
college,
until
and
they
now
go
they
to
can do.
bed.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like, hey,
and then they're having to make decisions on like what's the most important.
Right.
Right. And like, how do I prioritize all of this? And like, we have to be the consistent thing in there that like, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. Like, I'm trying to help you. And here is why.
Right.
And here is how we're going to go about that. And if we can do that and you have that relationship where and I'm sure Pewitt has told you, like, dude, I'll put my head through a wall at practice.
Yeah.
I'm as active and like as like outgoing and just like I want to be there just as much as they do, and like I want to help. Like I want to like that's the most fun that I have all day. They make
yeah,
me sit behind a computer, for the first 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 hours, and then you get to go cut loose at practice and
Right.
go chop it up, and like that's where like that's your work day,
Right.
and like that's like if I don't have that, then like I'm not coaching, and like that's what we want to do, and that's why we have to have as much fun as they do.
yeah. And one thing I definitely want to add, I've mentioned this. We do coaches workshops here too, with like AAU programs, travel programs that have a large staff, and they're all trying to get on the same page with their culture, right? And I brought this story up, and I want to tell it on the pod again. Not so much for you guys, for the people, maybe the 5 people that will listen to this episode, right? When I went to apply to a Lululemon in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. You can imagine what it's like there at a Lululemon, okay? I got the job, by the way. But nonetheless, they
I
asked me
know.
one question during the interview, okay? And they said, hey, how can you speak on diversity, okay? And majority of people, when they hear that, they start to go like, oh, what can we talk about with, how people's lives are different because of X, Y, and Z factors, right? The thing I said to them, and they actually told me this, I'm not bragging, I'm just, their words. It was the best answer they had heard. And I said, I want to tell you a little story. I was working at a golf course, okay, in the maintenance department, cutting grass, okay? And I told these people, I said, you guys can imagine all the walks of life that come into that door in the morning and what they're dealing with at home, okay?
Yeah.
Hayden and I talked about this at a gas station before we went to the World Baseball Classic. On a college baseball team, okay, you are welcoming in 40 individuals from all different backgrounds. And as a coach, and even if it's an AU program down the road that every kid's from the same exact town, you're 12 kids, all different houses, all different households with different issues. When it comes to
Different
diversity,
responsibilities, different everything. Yeah.
you have to be able to accept that everybody's going to have their own asks from you as a coach. You have to be able to be that person that can make every situation individualized, because every single person, just like at the maintenance department that I worked at, came in every single day with their own set of factors that I needed to deal with as their co-part. whether I was their leader that day or whether I was their, just their coworker, right? But as a coach and on the athlete side, this is what you guys should look into or look for in a coach, right? Is a sense of like, hey, is this guy going to take, or this coach, this coaching staff going to take the initiative to be individualized to what I need, right? Like, Hayden mentioned it. At my school, we had, majority transfers. We had guys in my time, we had guys from Dominican, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Panama, the Bahamas. Not really, but
Washington, New York,
Washington, all over.
Massachusetts. Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere, right? And then within that, we had guys that had money. We had guys that if they didn't have scholarship, they wouldn't be in the States. They're not in the States
Yeah,
anymore,
they wouldn't
right?
eat if they didn't have a meal plan.
Exactly. So, for coaches, and again, this is getting way deeper than just a generic, like, recruiting and stuff, but for coaches that are listening, like, having the ability to make those individualized connections with guys and be there in the ways that they need it is huge. Because, I'll even, name drop him because he was one of my good friends when we were there. Anthony Fernandez, right? That guy comes from the Dominican, and his thing is, I'm playing baseball here right now. While I'm
Yeah.
in the other corner of the locker room, like, dude, I'm here to get my master's. I want to get my PhD. Two
Right.
completely different lives that these coaches have to then factor in when we walk in the door every day. So I just
Right.
wanted to bring that up because I think it's so crucial for anybody in a leadership role, and especially with coaches with a sport that people tie their identity to so often, just to have that and know that, right? Because
Right.
I think it is important. I don't know if you guys can speak to that, but yeah, I think it
Yeah,
is
I mean,
crucial.
that's huge. Like, I've been at programs where that's one thing, like, you never know what's going on at home. Like, you really don't. Whether it be like girlfriends, some of our guys are even married, fiancés, whatever, or parents, mom and dad. Maybe they don't even have a parent. Whatever it is, like, you got to account for that, and that's going to show up in their personality. That's going to show up in their actions. That's going to show up in the way they work. All that stuff, and it's your responsibility to be able to understand that personality and that background to communicate with them. Because there's guys that you may want to yell at, but if you yell
Don't
at them, they're
work.
completely shutting down and they don't care. Or you may want to just go, hey, put your arm around them, and that may not work with him either. You may need to yell. Cam Verrier, for instance, we talked a few weeks ago. He was like, I need people to yell at me because that's how I was as a kid, and I take that better than when people just put their arm around me. He's like, yeah, every now and again, put your arm around me, but like, he's like, I love it when people yell at me because it shows me that they care. It shows me that they're passionate about whatever it is, so on and so forth. But yeah, there's so many different personalities, and y'all both know I'm not the biggest yeller in the world. But there's a time and a place for everything.
Yeah.
100%.
My time may just be a little shorter than Seth's.
It's passion. I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah, that's
That's
it.
brilliant.
No, you're right though, dude. Like that's it. Like you have to, and it's like nature versus nurture, right? Like
Yes.
we're like fighting against that to bring all of these people and like fighting with it and like trying to build them all into this one cohesive family, right? Where they ain't never like they're living with people they ain't never lived with before and they hate that. Like they don't even like this guy. They don't like the way he doesn't clean his room and like little things, and like, oh, man, it's just so many things that are factoring into their lives. And so just trying to help them with that, I mean, that's huge.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep. Yep. And when, like, that's a huge thing for every program is roommates. Like, you're with your boys now. Like, it's funny watching NFL stuff. Like, you hang out with people and they think that like the quarterback and the receiver are just best friends or whatever. And it's like, no, like they could have fought in practice the week earlier over some, whatever problem it could have been. Like somebody may have taken $5 out of their locker, something like that. Like, you never know. But you got to understand, like, it's huge to teach people how to treat other people. And when you see stuff like that, when people are talking down on people or giving kid too much hard of a time, like stuff like that, like you got to point that out to kids because, when they turn 26 years old or whatever and they get, started in their careers, and those things will show up and that may come back to bite them one day in their futures. Yeah, I mean, just understanding people.
Boom. How are you guys doing on time, by the way? I know we're approaching an hour, but I want to make sure you guys are
I'm
good.
cool.
I don't know.
I'm gonna go fill up a water real quick if you don't mind.
Fill up a water. Fill up a
Same.
water. Take a second here. So if I were to ask you, and I'm going to hold this up, okay? I want you to look at the space around this dot, okay?
Around the dot.
Around the dot, right?
Okay.
Okay, great. So what I want to explain to people that are viewing, right? We cannot see this space around the dot without identifying the dot itself, right? So in baseball, a lot of times, hold on, one more second. In baseball, okay, a lot of coaches that I've had in the past say, hey, hunt the gaps, right? But with every field being different and every field being pretty plain in the outfield, okay, the gaps are essentially the space between two fielders, right? So if we're going based off this, why would I want to be hunting something that doesn't truly exist without this being there, right? The dot. So when someone says, hey, hunt the gap, you're telling a kid subconsciously to identify, hey, where are the two people that I don't want to hit it to, and try to hit it somewhere in between them, right? So my idea behind this, that's kind of where it all started, was like, whoa, like why do we hunt the gap but not something? Like why isn't our intent going somewhere, right? It's like telling someone just, hey, hit the golf ball, but it's like, no, like I'm going for the pin, right? I'm trying to hit to the pin. I'm not trying to hit it around the pin or next to the pin. It's to the pin, for the most part.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
Coach Pewitt's going to draw that thing in there, though.
So here's, he is one of these. So,
it's real pretty if he's playing good.
Yeah, but when he's not, I'm sure it's not.
And then he's gonna miss the 4-footer.
The 3-putt from 4. Yeah, Jesus. Took him 2 to get there, 4 to go in. But nonetheless, so the idea behind what I'm thinking, and I'll get to that, is that if we can get individuals in the cage, right, to be, having their intent take them somewhere, right, and then having that same exact, visual cue on the field, right, then when they get on the field, it's almost like it's natural. So the idea that we had, right, is like either, people, when you show them red, it's like aggression, right? So we're like, I'm driving force towards red. So maybe if the middle ball on the thing, I don't know what the color coordination of your ball is,
red,
right?
yeah.
So red, we want to drive to like over the center fielder's head, right? So maybe in the back of the cage it's a red poster, and then on the field it's a red thing on the wall, right? Yeah. To give these athletes some intent to drive to, as opposed to, hey, hit it in between these two fielders, right? Similarly, what's the 3-4 ball on there, like the ones on the sides?
Yeah, so this one goes yellow to red, kind of like cold to hot is how we did this one. There's another one with 4 that's 2 red in the middle and 2 orange on the side. Yeah.
Boom. So imagine orange now is our gap. So in the cage, we line it up from the view of the hitter where the gaps are in the cages. So now we can practice that in the cage and then translate it to the field. Because imagine this. You're doing cage work, and then you go onto the field for your on-field beeps. And say for some reason you want a kid to start driving, hey, take your red pitch to the right field orange sign.
Yeah, right.
So it's more tangible things that these guys can hunt, as opposed to just like, hey, we're trying to drive this to the gap. No, we're trying to drive it to that red sign. And there's a tangible thing that they're now going for, as opposed to like the space around, if that makes sense. Does that deliver what I'm saying?
So Mac, you can talk. You talk about the balls, Mac, and I'm gonna bounce off of that.
Yeah. So this is a Coach Pewitt and I collaboration. The balls. We actually.
This is a long night phone call, and this is what we came up with.
Yeah, this is what we came up with, and this one's actually for 2-strike approach. Is how we devised this up. It's got 5 balls on it, so 7 balls across is a strike zone. That counts the black, right? Like a ball off a little bit, and you get you painted corners. And another reason that I like the 5 is because, and we did this a lot at App State with our TrackMan, but we talked about a lot of the middle 17 inches of the plate. And what the middle 17 is, middle 14. The middle 14 inches of the plate. And what the middle 14 is these 5 baseballs stretched across. It's just the white part of the plate, taking off the corners. And so we made these as a visual aid for the front of the plate so that we could move, like we talked about earlier in some of the approach stuff, let's talk about a sinker guy, right? Like he's got good arm side run. So if he's got good arm side run, like we would use a 4-ball and we would put that on the inside part of the plate for a right-hander and the outside part of the plate for a left-hander. So we would shift their focus off of this crafty righty machine that we've got drilled up
Yeah.
to the right-hander inside part of the plate. Because why do we do that? Like number one, like the sinker guy probably has a pretty good slider, and
Yeah.
so that we don't want them, we don't want the righties to chase the slider off the plate away, and we don't want the lefties to chase the back foot slider. And so we're eliminating the chase by looking for fastball in a certain place and like changing that zone a little bit. And then just giving them a little bit of a visual aid to that. And to be honest, like we didn't have a TrackMan when we put this together, and we couldn't, like show them some of the things that like some of the stuff that our data guy, his name's Cam Lyons, like he did some really cool stuff for us at App, and some
Really
of the
cool
BP.
stuff.
Those BP reports are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But this was the way that we could do that with balling on a budget, and
Right.
just like the guy throwing the BP or somebody behind can call out no, you're wrong. Like you swung a ball off of the approach, right? And then we can go back and adjust and help coach them through that. But I think it does go directionally as well, and that's like kind of where Pewitt can come in on that.
Yeah. Two things. I think what I'm thinking about right now, y'all can throw ideas out there if you got anything. I'm building those tonight, like I said. I think I'm going to put a wall or a sign or something in the outfield to where it's color coordinated with those balls. So like, can you hold those up again? So like the yellow, so the yellow on the outside, put that in the, in the gaps or wherever you want them, and then align that into the middle of the field to where it's the red ball. And now we may have something the next day where it's, reds in the middle of the field, say that's standard or whatever. And the next day we may have a different BP session to where I'm moving that sign to the, right center, and that yellow ball is going to be in the right field corner, so on and so forth, just to show them how the approach and the intent kind of intertwine with those and where I should be hitting this pitch versus this pitch to get the, maximum results out of my swing, to get more on time with more pitches, I guess I could say. But the other thing, you mentioned technology that we couldn't use. There's a kid, Alan Greer. You played against him last year, Mac, at Arkansas State. Great kid, super knowledgeable, smart kid. Wanted to work. He literally keeps a journal in the dugout. He's awesome, great kid. And he was chasing balls away, he was getting rung up on balls away, but on balls in, he was chasing. And he kept getting rung up on fastball away, he getting rung up. And he'd come back to the dugout and be like, Coach, I swear that's a ball, that's a ball, that's a ball. And so finally we get enough data, because we had just gotten Rapsodo, and finally we get enough data to where it's like, man, you have yet to swing at a ball on the outer third of the plate, and you're chasing balls inside. And so it's as simple as like, hey, man, maybe we just get up on the plate a little bit more, because you're not seeing it how it is supposed to be seen.
Cool.
And so little stuff like that, and Allen was great. He had a good finish to his career. I don't know if he's still playing pro ball or anything. In my opinion, he could have, but he made that adjustment really well and took off. And then obviously COVID hit that year, but it's cool to see in technology when we have stuff to see, it's right there in front of us. But sometimes, at a junior college right now, we don't have that yet. We're working on it. We're trying, because we know how valuable it can be, but we got to figure out a way to get those guys the same progression we would go through to find out the results and how we attack the bad on the TrackMan or Repsol or wherever it is. We got to figure out how to do that without it.
Yeah, and another thing, I'll spill this too, because I don't think it's a secret. One of my buddies, it's a hitting coach in pro ball. He told me this, and I actually seen it on a video. We had a relationship. Our shortstop at Milligan, when me and Pewitt were there, sent me a video of the Orioles using this. But to back up the 4-ball, what they do is they take a big med ball, right, like a slam ball,
Oh yeah,
and you put it on a chair behind home plate. And it's literally the same. I'm not kidding. If you got down and caught, it's as big as your chest. And it's just the white part of the plate. It's about 4 balls, 5 balls big. And like you can move it to the inner third, you can move it to the outer third, you can leave it right down the middle, and it's a feedback for when the ball gets by you, dude. Like you can swing and miss at a breaking ball off the machine that never hits the med ball, and you're like, hey, dude, like where did that thing end up? And like they can turn around and like, oh crap, I didn't. That's a bad pitch to swing at, right? And then we don't have a TrackMan, but we also are learning and using our resources that we have to go and do that. Because like I mean, we don't have a TrackMan here at Southern Illinois, and like that's the first thing that I bought was some med balls to use. Like they got to be cheap, and like we got to. I mean, we're gonna beat the hell out of them, dude. Because I'm gonna throw hack attack fastballs off of them all the time, you know. But like that's what they're there for, is to be used so that we can train that.
I do want to say this, and I hope Hayden remembers me with the strike zone thing, the hit zone that we talked about. And this is the one that you said he would like, and I think for the same reason. I basically went to Hayden with this idea of like, I'll even draw it out because it's way easier to explain with a visual. So give me 1 second. So I can be the guy from Blue's Clues back in the day. So imagine, you know, like an 8-pocket, right? Like an 8-pocket standard, you know? So imagine an 8-pocket that has
9-pocket. Go on.
9-pocket, yeah.
Oh, yeah, my bad. So imagine a 9. Yeah, 8.
No wonder you couldn't hit the ball right down the middle. You didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that was. I thought that was a strike. So imagine a 9-pocket, okay, but it has a the way I made it originally with my first idea was like the hit zone. Okay, let me back up a little bit actually because I want to explain this because it connects to what you guys are saying. A lot of individuals that see these types of things in the cages, right, assume that they're eyewash. Like when they see these things in the ground, they're like, yo, we don't need that stuff to hit. A lot of the old timers, right? And one thing I want to mention before I get into this whole other idea is like, again, the why this stuff is important in this day and age, right? And it's this type of stuff and having more things outside of an individual's brain that they can lean on to either execute or reflect on, like, hey, I didn't see that as a red ball or an orange ball, right? I saw it as a yellow. Well, it wasn't, right? Kids these days, like when I post my content on social media, my average watch time is like 3 seconds, okay? They don't have the attention span to be able to sit in a cage session for an hour and continuously just in their mind have their intent or their approach. They need to have it on outside of them so the coach can be like, hey, remember what you're going for here. Backside intent with an orange ball or whatever it is, right? So to start why these things are even being created, right? TrackMan's great because it's data and it can help you understand, hey, this is what gets happen. These types of things are like, okay, this machine is set up to be a orange ball, and I'm supposed to drive it backside. What does it feel like when I drive that to that orange sign on the wall? What is it? What am I doing when I miss and I'm topping that to the shortstop, right? So
that's it, right? Like, where is your miss?
Yeah,
that's it. And
I asked a kid. It's the first time I ever seen him hit today, and that was like I watched him hit, and I just asked him, like, is that your normal miss on that pitch? Because I want to know. Because that tells me how you go about your, like, that's a motor thing, right? Like
exactly. And on the mental skill side, like these kids that are going to be coming up, right? Like every generation is going to change because of the way they're nurtured, they're nurtured, and their nature, right?
What society's been through, dude. The COVID's changed the world, like
exactly
stuff like that.
So
like
Walmart used to not close, dude.
Yeah. So what was working?
TSA
5 years
wasn't
ago,
a thing at one point.
Yeah, they were just like, hey, have a good flight. But again, what was working 5 years ago might not work in 5 years from now. So as coaches, as even players, adapt and take charge of like, hey, what am I doing? What's going to help me right now? Yeah, having this stuff on the plate is not going to be there in the game, but it's going to get me to a point where I can work on my intent here, build up that confidence, and then go execute in the game. So after all that, the 9-pocket idea, okay? Imagine a 3-barrel like high and 5-ball wide hit zone, okay? So it's your barrel, 1 barrel above, 1 barrel below, and then 5 balls wide. The same as what you got there, right? That's how the size of the hit zone that I want people, younger kids especially, to identify. Where do you hammer the baseball, okay? Because if you know where you hammer the baseball, wait for the miss by the pitcher to be there and hammer it, right? So the idea is look something like this, okay? So it basically, this piece is the hit zone that we can move this way and up and down, right? So someone could put their hit zone down here. Now here's the thing. I'm going to ask a kid with this device and say, hey, where do you think your hit zone is? Okay. And say we set it to right here, and then they take a pitch and it hits square in the middle. Why'd we take that pitch, right? If that's your hit zone, if that's where you do damage on paper, why'd you take it, right? It gives them, like you said, the same thing with the med ball. It gives them instant feedback on, hey, that was not my pitch because my hit zone's here and the pitch landed in this pocket of the 9 pocket, right? And then additionally, then you can set up a camera because this is see-through right behind, and a guy can go back and watch, hey, okay, when I hammer that ball off the wall, what type of pitch was it? Was it, what are we working on right now? Is it cutting? Was it, is it arm side run? And was it in my hit zone or where I want to be doing damage, right? Because then they can learn a lot from, okay, Coach P's been telling me, hey, get up on the plate, right? So that might work now because I just shift my hit zone here and now I'm in the middle of the plate as opposed to only, outside. So again, it's just these types of tools, and it's what you guys have created long before people started thinking of it. So I give you the props, obviously. But these are the types of tools that I think kids are going to need because just like I said earlier, these kids that are coming up are results focused.
Yeah.
They need to, and we can use that to our advantage as the coaches and as on the mental skills side. Show them the result of something that happened bad. Show them of, hey, that was your miss because you swung at this pitch when your hit zone should be over here, right? As opposed to just saying, hey, what happened there? Like a lot of these older coaches do, like they just expect kids to like feel it and know it, right? And that's
I don't
not
think
how
it's
it
even
is.
just one generation. Like that's a lot
Across
of
the board.
people that
A
right,
lot of
yeah.
people. A
And
lot of people. Like the
and
first question, like it ain't a swing thing. Right? We talked about that earlier. Like it's not a swing thing. Like was it like first question I'm gonna ask you is it a good pitch?
yeah,
Yeah.
Like can we
Yeah.
try? We're gonna go back and be able to look, but I can't tell from the box. Like if I'm coaching the game, like I can't see exactly where that thing is. I can see a
Right.
little bit of up and down, but like you have to be honest. And like I think I said it earlier, but like we talk about giving away pitches and at bats. Like if you lie to me, that's giving it away.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right in that moment, like it's not an ego thing. Like I don't care. Like, I'm here to help you through it. And like
Right.
if it's not a good pitch, like you just have to be man enough, and like we have to train them enough for them to say that. And like my head goes back, dude. I love that. Like your little drawing. I think about a old school like you throw it and it sticks to it,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like a
yep,
ball. And like that's where my head goes to that. And like I'm like, dude, that would be really cool if you
Yeah.
could, or like something where you could like spray it and like wherever the ball hits, like it just leaves an imprint.
exactly.
Right.
Imagine this, like the same things that you put on a golf club to show, hey, this is where
Yeah.
this is
Where you make
exact. This you
contact.
stick it on, and then it's
Yeah.
hey, you can peel them off. They're cheap. You just stick it on. Now all
I
of a
think
sudden,
that's sweet. I really do.
Yeah.
But
you could even have it
You could do
be.
that a lot of things, yeah.
You could just have it be like the entire thing is where you put the sticker on, and now in real time you can turn around and be like, look at what you just took down the middle in beeps. Like, because that's the thing. I've had coaches in the past that will throw me BP, I'll take a pitch, and they're like, why'd you take that? And it's like, I don't think it's a strike. But now we have tangible evidence, like, hey, objective data. Was it a strike? Because if we don't have Trackman or Rapsodo, all these things. Was
right.
it a strike? Was it in your hit zone? If it's not in your hit zone, I can live with it. But if it's a strike in your hit zone that you should have mashed, why aren't we swinging?
Yeah.
Go
What are
back
we
to the
doing?
why.
And
And
that's
take
our job at practice, right? Is to move the hit zone. Like we're gonna
exactly.
Right.
train, we're gonna test you today. Like you don't hit outside pitches good, so we're gonna go into practice and we're gonna make it be outside, and we're gonna learn what that looks like and how to hit it. Like this thing isn't always meant to just go this way. Like one of
Right.
my favorite ways to hit is like with it long ways up the plate like this because it teaches contact depth too.
And it's
You
still the
know,
same, the cues externally, like we're still trying to go to the same place.
Yeah.
And like, but where did you hit it at, right? Do you have any feel for like how deep or how out in front did you hit that thing? Or like maybe even have a ladder day, like where I'm just going to ask you in flips to hit the first ball at the back ball as hard as you freaking can. And when I say hard, I mean like I know it's going to get back there and deep, but I want you to kill somebody in the
Yeah.
dugout.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
the next ball, and then the next ball, and then the next ball, and then just keep going. Then we'll work it back. And because it teaches barrel awareness, right? It may not have anything to do with hitting in the game, but it does to me.
Yeah.
Because I told our guys at App last year, and I think that this is where I believe in like why we would do this is because if you can't be good at wiffle ball, like you can't play for us.
No, it's true though.
Yeah,
Like it, because I mean, that's the thing. Hayden mentioned it all the time. Like we had guys that were good hitters that couldn't control their barrel, or
Yep.
like we did it. I think one time at Kaiser, maybe twice. Where we did what do you even call it? We had the machine set up as coming into us as righties, so we had to
offset.
drive offset, yeah, drive
Oh,
it
like a
to
little
the
oppo offset? Yeah,
yes,
okay.
exactly. Like that type of stuff. And there was guys that like just couldn't do it, right?
Right.
But again, it's not so much about like why you can't, or it's not so much about you not being able to do it. It's like, hey, why, right? What can you do with your barrel right now, with your intent to make it work? Because guess what? There might be a
Right.
pitcher that's having themselves a day. You got to make it work, right? So these
Right.
types of things and showing guys like real time, the results that these kids love to see of like, yo, was that a good swing? Like, yeah, it was because of X, Y, Z, right? But this trains so much more, right? It trains resilience, it trains confidence, it trains like it's just endless. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
I think about that offset. The first I remember, like I was so timid to do it as a coach. The first time, like, and I remember, like, we were in summer ball in South Dakota, and Pewitt's up there. We're all coaching against each other, and I brought a kid from my own school, Central Methodist, named Z Wesley. He's one of the best hitters I've ever coached, man, like a freak, a
Yeah.
freak.
Yeah.
And I swear, Z had 2 hits oppo in spring ball. Both of them were walk-offs, but that dude couldn't hit the ball past second base on the right side if you ask him to. But dude, he could still hit, and he lived
Yeah.
on the full side. And so, like during summer ball, I was like, this is actually for Z only. We're gonna do Oppo offset. I don't even know none of these other guys. I don't even know them. But like I know that Z Michael Wesley could get better at this. And so like I did it and he was like, Mac, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. And I'm like, Z, just trust me, you gotta just try to stay through it. Like trust me. And he went big fly backside that night. And he's coming around third, like dapping me up, and I'm just like grinning, dude. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. He's like,
No,
"This is so dumb, man," and but it works, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
And you just like try to teach him, and then he finds some confidence, and like we go back the next fall, and it's part of his routine,
Yeah.
because he understands, and like he gets a taste of that success, and he knows it can help him get better. And he knew that if I go oppo, like maybe my career will be prolonged a little bit, right? Like if I can move that
100%.
field a little bit, like I can continue to play this game at a higher level than I have,
Yeah.
and like it could be better for me. And he understood that, and our relationship continued to grow through that. But it was just a funny thing because I remember being so scared to try it, and it does, but it works for people, and it's an external cue of how to get through that.
I think all that goes back to the relationship too. Like Z being able to come up and say, "Dude, this is stupid." Like that's it right there. Like I love that because I'm gonna talk. We're gonna talk about it now. We're gonna talk a
Yep.
lot about it now, and we're gonna figure out why it's not stupid. And if you still think it's stupid, I'll be surprised. Or who knows? Maybe you convince me I'm wrong. Who knows?
And dude, I was like 21 then, and like I mean, I was young, man, and
Yeah.
and he trusted me enough, and I wasn't gonna just jump his throat for that because like
Right.
he needed to be talked to, like he wasn't gonna. I had seen it with that spring, like he doesn't respond from being yelled at. So like, how do I, bridge that gap and be able to meet him where he needs to be met? And I mean, like, was it because of the drill? Hell, I don't know, man. Like.
Right.
Like that ain't for me to decide. Like that guy's a good hitter. He was going to go big side, like pull side.
Right.
Like
Right.
No, and
Yeah.
it brings up Hayden. You just brought up a good point, at least in my brain. Like, the relationships are huge, but also like the communication. Like these drills, these things that we're creating, like they're not going to work for every single person, right? But it's understanding,
Right.
like, and I'm going to pull up this for viewers as well, but also for you guys. 'Cause I think it's awesome to show teams. If you're ever in a situation where like eyes aren't lining up, people are on different wavelengths, like no one's trusting each other, right? If I show you guys this picture, what do you guys see right away?
Turn it. Move it to the right. There you go.
I saw the bird first, but now I can kind of see the rabbit.
I just see it.
Mm,
Yeah. I just see a little duck.
right? So majority of people, or not majority, like about half and half. Well, majority of people see one or the other, right? But usually it's pretty split on like the perspective of the individual, right? So
Right.
no matter what we're doing, right? Young athletes are gonna walk in and see a drill, right? This goes back to knowing your players. Everybody comes from a different side.
Right.
everybody is going to see that drill in a different way and use it to
Right.
better their intent in some way, right? So the
Yeah.
more that we can make it external and the more that we can have things outside to communicate, because guess what? If we didn't have this and all these details to prove, hey, hey, I could explain right now, this is a duck because of this and this is a bunny because this is the ears, right? If we don't have things out that we can discuss openly that we're all experiencing together in our environment, how the hell are we going to get anywhere when it comes to talking about our approach or intent to something,
Yeah.
right? Because guess what? If we have no tools to make objective data of what's going on in our environment with us, then we can't have real conversations because it's all about this is how I feel, right? And
Yeah.
that's one thing that I'm working on the mental skills stuff. Like mental skills should be just like physical skills or physical training, right? When you go in the gym, if you can't pick up 80s and chest press them, you're not stronger than me because I can, right? There's some like objectivity to that, right? With mental skills,
Right.
there's not. It's like, hey, how do you feel? How do you react, right? It's all like kind of like hearsay. This type
Right.
of stuff, and again, I'm going on a little tangent here because I'm preaching to the choir, but it's more to the viewers. This type of stuff that these guys who are very, very skilled at what they do, and I like think about, this is the objectiveness to a conversation about a mental approach or intent. That's what this is.
Yeah.
It's putting value into, hey, we are doing this to create this, and you're going to have this pitch to do this. Like whatever the conversation is, it's more than just like, oh, you thought that pitch was outside? Well, I thought it was inside. So right here, F you. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore, right? So like,
Yeah.
again, that's not going to get us anywhere, right? If we don't have the details to prove, hey, this is why I see bunny or this is why I see duck, what are we talking about, right?
That's
No,
right.
hey, coach, how much better, and this is a question for you, how much better is it for as a coach to be able to go to an athlete and be like, hey, man, what pitch did you swing at there? Was it like red? Wait, what do you think that was? Whatever the conversation is, and then be like, oh, here's a video, right? Here's a video of you actually not swinging at the pitch you just thought you did, right? So now at least we're getting somewhere. Maybe it's an ice thing. Maybe we got to get our sights lined up, right? We're swinging at pitches out of our zone. We're swinging at pitches in the zone, but we're missing them. These types of things make those conversations more objective and less like, hey, this is how I feel. And I think that's going to be so big for this next generation of athletes that lean into the results, especially. I know I've said it before, but that's the biggest thing. That's like the takeaway for me, at least that I've learned
I mean,
today.
if you
Like,
don't get a hit, you don't feel good, right?
Yeah.
Daddy's gonna wag his finger at you in the car on the way home if you don't get a hit. But like, what if,
Right.
like Pewitt said it to start the day? Like, what if you never got a pitch to hit
boom.
because you hit the 3-jack for the best team in the league, and like they know that you're a good player even at that age. Like they know like Johnny's gonna get the spin, and like
Yeah.
it's okay.
And he may not get a strike, much less get
Yeah.
a pitch to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we go to coach pitch way too early nowadays. Anyways, like kids can't even throw freaking strikes. We're asking kids to hit and have confidence in hitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
The hardest thing
yeah,
to do in sports. And we're just like,
Yeah.
get out there, have fun.
yeah,
I do.
and like
The
mom
thing
and dad.
you mentioned, that
Yeah.
the machine pitch is awesome, bro. I think the
I love
kids
it.
doing that is great because, like, everybody's been a part of a machine scrimmage at some point. Like, it's great because it takes away some of that variable.
Yeah.
And
There's so many less
it's-
factors.
Right.
I
and
didn't
it's great
play
because
in
there's
a kid
balls
pitch
in
league till I was
play.
11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we had
Imagine
machine pitch leagues that
Yeah.
that long, and it like that's got to be good for you, dude. Like
Dude.
it's gonna throw bad pitches. Like I'm not gonna say that it's
Right.
not, but for the most of the time, dude, like it's gonna be so good just for the pace to play to teach people how to hit, right?
And you're
Like
going to have
exactly.
harder hit balls at you in the infield, in the outfield, stuff like that.
How about kids not going away from the game because they got hit in the neck by a kid trying to throw them
Right.
a strike? Like you take away the fear factor of getting hit early on that drives kids away from the game. Like I've literally met some of my buddies that are like, yeah, I played baseball until I was in minors. That's what we call it in our town. And I got hit in the throat and I was like, yeah, I'm out. Like I don't know, just little things like Hayden. I think I asked you this question, like what you would tell a kid to do if he was like a T-ball player, right? And I think you said like, step towards where the ball is coming and swing as hard as you can or something like that. But like, imagine you could teach younger kids that with consistency of a pitch like down the middle. And then they
Right.
can understand what it feels like to do that early on and get used to it, you
Right.
know? And so that's another great point that I have to actually note because parents always ask me about that part of my language.
And another
today.
thing, we talked about the last few questions, like the hit tracks. Like we talked about it the other day.
I turn it off. But
Right. So many kids will swing and then jerk back and look. And that goes back to the attention span stuff too. Like
yes, I think, yeah,
they need to see that screen. They do. And I'm gonna swing, we're gonna work on this. And I'm more worried about that screen than I am what coach is saying.
yep,
And sometimes that can be beneficial with the hit tracks and then being able to look back and see what they did. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's a conversation that we need to have. But I don't know. That was a little thought I thought was
yeah. I
applying to a
actually
couple of the
lied.
last few things we said.
I leave it on, but I turn it to party mode, so it like doubles the exit velocity for every hit. So every ball leaves
Yeah.
Fenway by like 400 feet.
Right.
So
Right.
like when they look, oh my god, I hit that 130. I'm like, yeah, you did, buddy. Get back in there.
Right.
Yeah, it went right to
Yeah.
the pitcher, but it
And
left dead center.
right, it's great. So I when I was living in Spokane a few years ago, I coached all ages basically. I was working for a travel team, just basically running all their hitting, and we had a hit tracks. And with those 12, 13U kids, I would do exactly what you said, and I would turn it up to like times 10 or whatever. I don't know what the setting is, but you would turn it up, and basically if they had good ball flight, the ball went out of the park. And so like they don't know this, but we're training good ball flight. And that's huge when it goes back to things because 90% of the time with kids' problems, the way I notice it is through their ball flight, their consistency of, whatever it may be, flaring balls, yanking balls, whatever it is. Like, but for the kids, like, that's awesome because they don't even know what they're learning. They're just thinking, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to hit more home runs than you.
Boom. So sick. So sick. Hit tracks are fun. I will say. I don't care.
So much fun for kids.
Like they are fun. But they
I can promise
sometimes.
you right now, if me and Mac and Mike too, we're in a room with the hit tracks, just like messing around, we had an hour, we would have some competition.
Sweating. I'd probably pull something like right here that doesn't even exist yet because it'd be in a different spot by me trying to go big time pull side bomb and just.
I haven't taken those swings in a while, dog. So like I gotta get back into swinging shape.
Oh,
I just been hitting golf balls as far as I can. I'm gonna do long drive. That's all it comes down to. Well, one last thing because I like to keep these shorter, and this has been amazing. So I appreciate you guys' time, no matter what. But I do have one more idea I want to run by you guys, and I want to hear your thoughts. Okay, because I think a lot of coaches, and it kind of ties into the fun aspect of practice, right? I talked to my high school coach about this, and he seemed to like the idea, but I want to get some hitters, more expert hitters' minds on it because it'll be beneficial. So at Southeastern University, okay, are you familiar with Southeast? I'm sure you've heard of Southeastern.
Yeah, we're all familiar.
Yeah. So Southeastern, Hayden, how far is their dead center field?
It's not.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's bigger in the gap, or it's bigger in the gaps. Yeah.
So but to dead center, it's fairly short.
It's
probably 350.
It's the perfect field for a hitting coach.
And why is that? What does it do at practice?
You're in training intent to the middle of the field, no matter what. It's awesome.
Boom.
And so, like, you go watch them hit. It's beautiful because, like, all their guys have really good ball flight. And I don't know exactly what they were teaching or anything, but every single day, those guys are trying to hit homers to center field, which is exactly what I would want.
What happens when they're early? Their ball flight is good. Pull side Jimmy Johnson off that building, right? And if they're a little late, then it hits a low line drive that scrapes over the fence on their right field line, right?
Right.
So, again, Mac, do you want to speak on that at all, by the way? Like what?
No, I mean, I think that's like, I think Pewitt told me that he got to coach hitting one time with you guys at Kaiser in a cage session, and I think he put a target in center in the cage, and like he was like, I want everybody to hit home runs this way, right? And like people struggle to do that, and then you just change their field of vision just a little bit from their pull side gap, let's just say left center field, because that's where everybody's like, if you're going to hit a home run, like that's where you think about it, right? Babe Ruth pointed to his pull side gap when he pointed, and so that's where everybody's trying to hit it. But like, what if you just moved it a little bit? And our head coach at App, his name's Kermit Smith, and he would say, I want you to take this ball and skip it off the top of the L screen and make it go out dead center.
Yeah.
Like I want it to graze the top and go out dead center, and then the miss from there, left to right, like that shows us everything, right? But back to what you said, Mike, it's intent, right? Like, where is your intent, and like, what does it create with the miss?
Yeah.
Boom. And the reason I bring this up is because I was talking to my head coach, and I want to leave everybody, because we're going to wrap up soon. I want to leave like coaches that might be listening to this, especially for like high school levels even like, even college. I mean, it can be used anywhere, but definitely for high school, right? Um, like I've said probably 10 times already, kids are results driven, right? Just like Hayden was using the hit tracks to create ball flight, right? There's stuff that we can do to create that same intent that Southeastern has at their field, right? So one of the things that I was
Right.
talking to my head coach about is literally making like, and I'll draw again, I'm going to draw it out for everybody so they know what my thoughts are, right? If this is our field, okay? So obviously we all know what a baseball field looks like with a fence, right? We literally can create like,
That's a pretty quality field there you draw. I mean, like,
okay,
That's pretty
these
good.
are this is the new fence, right? These are cones at practice, okay? Now when we have our guys, we do a home run derby where everybody's trying to hit a home run here. No one's going to
Yeah.
be looking down here where this was the
Right.
shortest part of their field anymore, right? They're going to be hunting right here over and over. And what I'm going to
Yeah.
have my high school coach do, and I'm interested to see if you guys ever, I mean, you guys probably won't try this one, but something similar, right? Count how many hits these guys get when they're hunting that new home run
Yeah.
derby, right? So
Right.
you can literally just not even put fielders in here, and this is for coaches, not for you guys, but just coaches that might be listening, right? Don't even put fielders in here. This is the new fence with cones, right? So
Yeah.
everybody can just shag in here, do whatever you got to do, still get your
Right.
infield reps. But now you're creating that same vibe at Southeastern of like, hey, we're hunting to go straight over the center fielder's head and just live up the middle, right? And I can almost guarantee, because I've seen it work with Southeastern in their BP, that this will create so many hits for like inexperienced hitters, because it's going to just put them in a place where they're now on time for their fastball, like you said, Mac, to go dead center over the center fielder's head. If they're a little late, it turns into backside. If they're a little early, it
Yeah.
turns into a pull side barrel, right? But if we know that these kids can drive the ball dead center over the center fielder's head with backspin, I'm sorry, I just think that it puts them in that situation to have the results. Hey, I hit
Right.
10 home runs in practice, Mom. Okay, great. That's she's gonna be like, oh, great, sweetie. Here's your mac and cheese. Okay, great. But that kid learned how to flight a ball to center that day and didn't even know. He just thought he hit 10
Right.
tanks, right?
Right.
So again, I just
we
kind of
did
went on
a
a
cool
tangent.
thing. We had kids camp at App, and we got to use. So we did winter youth sessions, and I think I sent Pewitt a picture of this. But we would take a tee, and we had like field goal practice in the indoor football practice up at App State, like. And so, like, we got them dead center on this freaking field goal, dude, and we're just trying to smash foam balls. We got kids hitting 60-yard taters through the uprights. Dude, like through the uprights, and like they have no idea that they're just getting so
Right.
much better, like
Right.
so much better. And like, I mean, I've got players that think it's the coolest drill too. Like they're working camp trying to hit home runs like this with the kids.
I love that. I
Yeah.
just wrote that down. That's big time.
And I think you can move that. What was your word? Intent, Mike. Move that
Yes.
around. Like we can take that. There's
Come
days
on.
where we need to work on backspinning the ball to the pull side, or
Boom.
maybe down the line. And like if we're flaring or slicing balls or whatever, maybe we need to put it down in the right field line today. Maybe we need to put it in the pull side line today. Stuff like that. Just because that's covering the whole. From the time we're in the zone to the time we leave it, like we're having good ball flight everywhere in between.
Yep.
And I'm
And
going to give it.
sometimes you feel bad, dude. You're moving slow, and you got to think pull side gap. Sometimes
Yeah,
you're feeling freaking froggy, and you got to tone that beast back, right? And you're like
yeah,
fighting that, and so you got to back it up a little bit because you feel so good, and
yeah,
that's okay. That's okay. Like we're gonna just try to set ourselves up for the most amount of success possible, and if we can learn that and teach that in practice, then we did our job, right? And like you said it too, like the kids love to compete, right? We
Have
can't get
results, man.
outside of
Yeah.
that factor, right? Like, and like the new data driven, like if you want to train it, track it, like we can do that and make it fun as a game, right?
right.
Like my score sheet for
100%.
BP is right behind there, and like people want to know who's winning BP, but the winners also like are the best hitters on the team because they,
They can do
you
it
know
all.
what I'm
100%.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it just is, right? Like, you got, I mean, our guy, Austin St. Laurent, that got drafted, and, like, he's up there, like, fighting tooth and nail, winning every single day of these competitions in the fall because like, he knows, like, number one, like, it's going to benefit his swing, but number two, he knows it's competing as against an arm, right? Like, it's
Right.
just it's a mix, it's an approach, and it's intent driven behind that, but he's getting better. and he's also getting to have fun and talk a little bit to his boys because he's going to whip
Right.
them every day.
Yep.
And
And
I think that's
and
where
both
we
of
get
those
the
makes him
most.
great. Both of those makes him great. And in my opinion, I would rather have the second part. I've seen St. Laurent play just because I follow Mac, and I'd rather have the second one. I'd rather have the guy that just wants to beat this other guy because I want to beat you. Like, I want to win.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when we do that and we train it that way with a little competition, you see who's the competitive ones and who isn't.
Yeah. You want to get a better, more out of like your first steps for stealing second. Have the guys play friggin' red light, green light.
Right.
Who can start moving and stop quickly, right? Like I
Yeah.
literally did it with a soccer group the other day. Like I was trying to get them to compete. I'm trying to have them work. They're young. They're like, young girls. I'm trying to have them, work on body control, simple things like focus over
Yeah.
like a
That's
long
cool.
period of time. Dude, red light, green light. They're like,
Yeah.
they're running, they're sweating. I'm like, dude, this could be your
I
guys'
bet.
warm up before a game. Like, because they just want to compete.
Yep.
One thing
That's
I did
awesome.
want to mention to individual, and again, we're gonna have another one of these offline, if you guys want,
Yeah.
because
Love to.
I've been designing out my baseball programming, so I have basically 18 weeks of mental skills programmed out for baseball partnerships that we're having, and I want to run some stuff by you and get your guys' thoughts if you are willing to give me your thoughts.
Absolutely.
But one thing I want to leave people with so they understand, because Hayden mentioned it at the end of that, like moving the intent like around the field, right? And I want to kind of give a visual for people that, again, we're speaking like this, all this stuff because we all know it, right? There could be a brand new coach watching this that has no idea what the heck we are talking about, right?
Yeah, for
They
sure.
don't
And
know the
that was me.
lingo.
That was me. A few years ago. And
Yeah,
I mean,
that
it's
was,
the same way moving forward. Like in 5 years, I may think this is the most stupid thing
I
I've
may
ever
want it to
said.
be deleted from the
yeah,
internet.
we might look
Right,
at this and
right,
be like,
right,
we were wrong, and that's fine. But that's why we're having these conversations, right? To
right,
document, hey, these are our thoughts, and just because we're saying this doesn't mean that anybody who's talking about it somewhere else is wrong. It's just how we
right.
think, and we all have our own perspective, the exact same.
And where we're
But I
at
want,
right now and stuff like that. Yeah.
boom. So I want to show people this, okay? This is a baseball field for those that don't know. If you don't know, then you probably shouldn't be coaching, okay? And I'm going to draw some lines here. So this is our straight up intent, right? Like we're using the entire field, okay? Boom. Now, there might be an individual that needs to create their baseball field like this, okay?
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
their
Right.
baseball
Right.
field is working this way, and their good misses, okay, might be over here, but this turns into our baseball field, right? And vice versa. There might be somebody
Yeah.
that walks in as a lefty, and we've seen it. Like we told a guy, Edbury Guzman, I'll name drop him because he'll love it. Okay, his intent was going towards left field as a lefty, and we told him, hey, your dead center now is I mean, your pull side is no further than this, right?
Yeah.
Your dead center is here, right?
Yeah.
And when we say intent, and when these guys are talking about like driving the ball into different spots, like yeah, we started with the home run derby in dead center, right? But what Hayden's saying is, hey, we could move that a little bit over, and now we're creating intent to go a different way. And again, I'm preaching to the choir in this call because you guys know these terms. And correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. Is that a good explanation for what you meant, Hayden?
That's
Yes.
beautiful.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, because
Beautiful.
again, coaches don't understand what we mean by intent, right? If we then wanted to go backside for lefties, we just move it over here now. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it's
Right.
flipped for you guys, but you get the
Right.
point. So when
And
we're
some coaches
talking,
will say use the whole field, but that's the cue we need to go with instead of just telling a kid use the whole field. Like, all right, let's shift the field so that they can use the whole field because right now their field is in our dugout and we need to get
yes,
it back on the field, but they don't
yes,
feel that.
yep, 100%. And these types of things, again, we're not. When I tell an athlete to shift it from here to here, I'm not telling them to give this part of the field away. I'm telling
Right.
them that their misses pull side, if we're over here, are going to be doubles down the line. But if
Right.
we're staying here, we're going to pull off all this foul and we're getting nothing out of it, right?
Right.
So
Right.
again,
Yep.
just because we're telling a guy to go again, maybe it's even extreme down the line. Like Hayden used to tell me, I never figured out how to hit, but Hayden used to say that all the time. Like hit a ball in the softball field, that was backside for us. Hit a ball in the softball field, backside, right? And I knew that my best misses were when I was hitting a ball that was jetting over our third base dugout because I knew, hey, I was just late, but that's the right intent that I need, right?
Right.
But again, if Hayden wasn't there to give me that external cue of something to go for, I was results driven just like everybody else. I wouldn't have seen the vision that he was talking about.
Right.
So coaches that are listening, to wrap this up, because again, I know that we talked a lot about different things. The main thing you have to understand, I mean, there's a lot to take away, but at least for this conversation at the end, is when we say intent, when we say working towards a certain part of the field, we're not cutting off this part of the field because we're going for this. This is going to be there, but for that individual,
Right.
they need to be thinking this side, and then this will be
Right.
in play. If they're thinking here, then this is going to turn into foul. Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you? Is that
100%.
That's the
guys?
cover in
Yes.
the second pitch, right? Like that's
Right.
where we kind of
Right.
started there, but that's
Now we're ending there. Yeah.
that's
I
Yeah.
it.
literally
Like,
have that drawing. I'm going to show a PowerPoint presentation to our guys when we get here, and I literally have that drawn out on the PowerPoint.
Boom. And again, I'm happy that you do, because I just know people won't understand, that point of it.
Right.
But yeah, guys, well, we're going to wrap up here. We're going to do another one of these. I hope you guys know that. I'm going to force you to come on the podcast in the winter after your fall to talk about what was working, what wasn't, if you can. But anyways, I appreciate your guys' time, big time. And I hope that you got something out of it. I mean, I know it's not much. Hopefully you get some views. But
this is
hopefully,
like
I
your
mean,
kickoff
if we
to the
didn't
fall,
record
dude.
this,
Like, yeah, now I'm ready to
yeah.
go coach, man. Like,
yeah,
let's
dude,
go.
let's
And
go.
if we didn't record this, me and Mac would have probably had this conversation anyways. So
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate your guys' time. It helps me out a lot doing this podcast, and I know people that listen are going to benefit from it. So I appreciate it. Mac, great to meet you. Thank you for coming on just out of the blue. I know Hayden probably
Thanks for
convinced
having
you.
me, dude. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. It's great to
Yeah.
meet you too, Mike. And
And I'm sure we'll talk soon. I'm going to save your number, by the way. I hope you know that.
let me say one thing. So I'll say this about youth and like Mike, what Mike's doing. If I was a parent, which maybe one day we'll talk. Same with Seth, I think,
Jesus.
if Courtney's listening. If I'm a parent, I'm doing stuff that Mike's doing and not going to this hitting coach until, I know what my kid needs to do physically. And these kids are changing so much through puberty, just growing, that if we can train what to do here, it's going to go much further than what we do. And I think a lot of kids get coached out of good moves. I think a lot of kids have a good move and they go see somebody when they're 9 years old and they're not strong enough to to feel the bat through the zone. So maybe the barrel's, dumping in the back. But that, as they get stronger, their intent stays the same. We may have something now. So I think as a parent, if I was a parent, I would be going to somebody like Mike, improving those mental skills to where, like, when they do finally finish growing, we have the mental skills. Now let's work on the physical stuff.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Pewitt, because we learn so much from little kids. Like I got a picture of my brother at he's probably 4 years old, dude, and he's swinging a bat, and like I'm throwing it to him, but it's in such a great position. And like we didn't talk about that, nothing, dude. He's 4, like he's just feeling it and swinging and having fun, and like you've got to be able. And like what his goal was is to hit a home run, right, or on a little field that he can drive that thing over the fence, and that's all he was trying to do. And so like hit it hard, hit it far, man, and swing as hard as you can for a long time, because like that's going to go a long ways. And like if you can teach yourself to hit them straight when you do that, like that's good, dude. That's good.
Yeah.
Straight ahead.
Yeah.
As far as you can.
Let's go. This was so good. I can't thank you guys enough. But for everybody listening, if you're still here, God bless you. But I make that joke every podcast, so people are going to hear it and be like, "Oh, you said that in the last one." But nonetheless, I thank you guys big time for your time. And for everybody listening, thank you guys for joining us today on the My 360 Mindset podcast. We will see you next time.